She said my daughter didn't belong here, that this wasn't a daycare. Then she leaned over the stroller, grabbed Noah by the arms, and threw her, my 2-year-old, into the reflecting pool. I didn't scream. Not right away. I froze until I heard the splash. That sound still lives somewhere in my chest. By the time the water swallowed her cry, I was already over the edge, pulling her up. Marva Elwell, 62, president of the Stoneville Ridge HOA, just stood there, lips tight, like she'd won something. And maybe she thought she had. Maybe she believed the rules were worth more than a child's breath. What she didn't know was that the safety ring floating beside Noah wasn't a toy. It was recording. Thermal feed audio, ping full telemetry straight to my cloud node. Proof, because the only thing that saves you when a neighborhood dictator decides to rewrite reality is proof. I'm Silas Dorn. I design aquatic safety systems for city pools. A widowed dad. My wife Lena drowned during a Navy training dive 3 years ago. Her rescue ring, the one stitched with her initials, is what I rebuilt for Noah. I promised Lena our daughter would never fear water. I didn't know the thing she should have feared was the woman next door. When I first moved in, Stoneville Ridge looked perfect. Manicured lawns, sandstone walkways, community bulletin board with smiling clip art families. But the fine print was everywhere, rules about hedge height, porch color, even how long a toy could sit outside. Marva ran it all. Clipboard pearl earrings, voice sharp enough to cut glass. She called herself a guardian of order. I called her a control addict with a bylaw complex. It started small. A warning notice, unapproved outdoor item, Lena's ring drying beside Noah's rain boots. Then a fine for extended infant noise disturbance. My kid had cried through a heatwave nap. Every paper came stamped with her initials, M.E. I tried to laugh it off. I trimmed, polished, complied. But compliance just made me a better target. The morning it happened, the HOA hosted their monthly beautification day. The one-time residents were allowed near the courtyard pool. I figured maybe this would be peace. Noah wore her sun hat. I carried the float. We stayed on the walkway. When Marva saw us, she stopped mid-conversation, eyes locked on the ring. "She doesn't belong here," she said. Then before I processed the words, she reached 2 steps 3, and Noah was airborne. The ring flashed red as it sensed body heat. I dove, pulled her out coughing, sputtering alive. Marva just walked away, muttering something about non-compliant objects. My hands shook, not from cold, from disbelief. She'd done it in front of people, in daylight, and nobody moved. That night I sat on our porch, counting every breath Noah took, towel around her shoulders, while the pool lights glowed like an accusation. The next morning, an envelope on my door: community disturbance, misuse of restricted area. A grainy photo, me holding Noah near the water. They made it look like I'd thrown her. Fine $500. Access suspended. I laughed. Then I stopped laughing. Because someone had stood there with a camera when it happened and still sided with her. That kind of corruption isn't just rule obsession, it's rot. I started digging. Every citation from the past month, every signature. Same pattern. Rules updated after the fact. Infractions created retroactively. Marva didn't enforce policy. She wrote it to fit the punishment. And people let her. Fear works quietly in neighborhoods like this. It hides behind HOA letterheads. Still, part of me wondered if I was losing it. If grief was twisting everything. Maybe I was overreacting, seeing conspiracy in paperwork. I almost packed up. Sell the house, start somewhere. Nobody cared about fence colors. Then Clint Havley knocked. HOA vice president, the man who'd frozen by the pool. He looked hollow. "You should keep your daughter away from her," he whispered, then shut the door. Not denial guilt. That's when I knew I wasn't crazy. I called an old colleague, Margot Ingersoll, former inspector, now legal consultant for the state's Department of Real Estate. Told her what was happening, careful to sound calm. She listened a long time, then said, "You're describing hostile exclusion, Silas. Build your timeline. Dates, evidence, everything." So I did. Every notice, every email, camera feed, timestamp. Then one night, reviewing footage, I caught her, Marva, sneaking out with a flashlight, peeling back the weatherproof seal on the community bulletin board, swapping the official rule sheet with a new one labeled "Reflecting Pool Child Restriction Draft, Not Yet Passed." She resealed it. The camera logged it 3 days before the incident. That was my smoking gun. I brought it to Clint. He stared at the tablet, jaw clenched. When I asked if that rule had ever been approved, he whispered, "No." That one word turned anger into purpose. From there, everything accelerated. More letters, more fines. Then a forged photo implying, "I endangered." Noah timestamp altered. CPS threats slipped under my door. She was trying to flip the script to make me the villain. But fear only works until someone stops hiding. I added every forgery to the file, every manipulation, and one night Clint handed me a small recorder. "She thought I'd hung up," he said. I pressed play. Marva's voice cold and shaking. "If this gets out, I'll lose my seat. Leak a CPS tip if you have to bury him in citations. Shut him up before the audit hits." I didn't shake this time. I smiled. "It's the end of her," Clint said. He was right. By the next HOA meeting, I'd compiled everything, video, audio, falsified policies, neighbor statements into one red envelope. The community center smelled like old coffee and fear. 2 board members sat at the table pretending this was just another Thursday. Marva arrived late, heels clicking clipboard, thick with excuses. I waited until they called for resident concerns. Then I placed the envelope in front of them. "This contains evidence of policy fraud, timestamp falsification, and child endangerment committed by your sitting president. Copies have already been filed with the Department of Real Estate Child Protective Services and the county attorney. This one's just courtesy." No one breathed. Alan, the treasurer, blinked. "That's not typical protocol. Neither is throwing a toddler into a pool," Clint said from the back. Marva didn't turn, just hissed. "You resigned. You have no standing." "I've got ears," he answered. I laid it all out, the footage, the forged minutes, the audio. The room rippled with whispers. Alan flipped through the pages, his face draining color. "These vote dates don't match our filings," he murmured. "They were revised for clarity," she snapped. "They're stamped after the enforcement notices," he said softly. "You told us they were approved. They were understood." "Understood isn't law," Clint said, "and you endangered a child under that lie." The motion came quietly. 2 votes for removal, none against. She slammed her clipboard, stormed out before the gavel hit. The echo was louder than any cheer could have been. The next week, state inspectors showed up, badges, clipboards, real ones. They measured the courtyard, photographed the bulletin board, collected statements. CPS called too. The agent, Tanya, said, "We've reviewed the footage. You did everything right, Mr. Dorn. We're closing your case and opening hers." By the time the audit finished, the HOA was dissolved. Residents met on their own, drafting new bylaws, rescinding every fine from the past year. Clint chaired the meeting, no clipboard, no fear. When he asked if I'd join the oversight panel, I told him no. "I didn't do this for a seat," I said. "I did it because someone decided my daughter didn't belong." I left before they finished voting. The courtyard was quiet, the kind of quiet that doesn't hide things anymore. Noah's float rested on the water, red stitching glinting under the lights. She touched it and whispered, "Not scary anymore. Not scary anymore." That's the whole lesson, isn't it? Power built on fear only lasts until someone stops being afraid.